going back, and I wanted to follow up with what we had been sharing about earlier. But before you go any further, here's something I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to find a time, perhaps to step away from the family and watch the movie Gladiator. And the reason I say step away from the family is probably not the most family friendly movie. There's a lot of gore in the movie, and it can be a little rough, especially for the younger ones. So if you can, find an opportunity and go watch the movie Gladiator. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to watch the movie. And one of the things that when I was studying for this that I really came across is the statement. And again, we're talking in reference to, as a man, do I have what it takes? And how is that question being answered for me? You know, the truth of it is that most men have never been initiated into masculinity, into manhood. Oh yes, there's been this or that event, but there's never been this real special event, a lifeline thing that occurred that initiated them into masculinity. You know, in older cultures, I know that in Native American cultures, there was an initiation. There was a thing that they did with young men to invite them into that brotherhood, so to speak. I know that a few years back I had the opportunity to go out to Tesoro, Escondido, and go through. Dudley offers a father-son retreat, and in that retreat, he he does an initiation ceremony, and in that he invites young men to join the brotherhood of men. Also, a few years ago, I went through. There's a retreat called the Quest, and I went through that, and they also have a ceremony of taking up the sword and become a warrior. Will you fight for the things that you believe in, that matter to you? The things that not just matter to you, but the things that really answer the question, the battle to fight. The adventure to live, and the beauty to rescue. You know, the attack is on our strength. The enemy doesn't always go after our weakness. He doesn't try to destroy it. He tries to destroy our strength. And the way he does it is that he tries to strengthen our weakness. Think about the things that you struggle most with that are destructive in your life. And those are the things that seem to grow most powerful, especially in circumstances and situations like we're living in right now. Man, I know there's a lot of, there can be opportunities for, as for free time. There can be opportunities for being alone. And I know for some of you that's not the case. It's family and kids in your face nonstop. But this has been a real change in environment. And how are you handling that? What are you doing with it? When you look at the men that you are in relationship with, and I know that today's circumstances are a little different, but let's step aside from that. In the normalcy of life as we had known it, what did you see? What do you see in the lives of the men around you? Do you see warriors? Hopefully you see some. Or do you see weak men that are easily taken out of the battle, that allowed their pursuit of the question, do I have what it takes, and where they have taken it to actually feed addiction, to feed habits in their life that are actually destroying them. How have you used this time during quarantine? I know that it appears in many arenas that we're coming to the end of it. So my question would be, how will you do, or what will you do with what's left? How will you handle it? Are you going to make a checklist and try to get some things accomplished? Are you going to be one of those that touts the injustice of all that has occurred? And please hear my heart. I am not in any way trying to take a side on whether how this has been handled well or has been handled right. My question is, how have you handled it? Have you handled it well? Have you handled it right with your family, with your children? Have you done all that? Have you used your time wisely? I question. I look back over the last, for me it's been about 8 weeks, and I look at the last 8 weeks and have I really truly accomplished all that I could have? No, probably not. What about you? Recently, one of the things that I did, even in preparation for this, or at least that's my excuse, I watched the movie Cinderella Man. It's a movie of Jim Braddock, a man who had some level of success in the boxing ring, and had begun to accumulate things. But then he had a run of bad luck, or maybe he became so arrogant in his belief in himself that he failed to properly train. Whatever the reason, the depression hit, and suddenly here was a man who had lost almost everything, and he was fighting to try and save his family. When we look at the circumstances that we find ourselves in, and for most of us, even though it's been a struggle and there's been difficulty, to my knowledge, we've had food to eat and we've had a place to live. This was a time when there wasn't food. The soup lines, as they called them, became longer and longer, and the soup had less and less consistency. Even the government assistance didn't go very far in trying to pay for rent and electricity. But the story goes on to show how he refused to give up. And in the midst of adversity, how he continues to fight. And he became the rallying cry for an entire neighborhood, an entire society of people, where the little guy, the guy who had been knocked down, was able to get back up and find a way to defeat the champion. I'm not giving anything away. It's it's not a documentary by any means, but it is based on a true story. It's really good. But also, one of my favorite movies is The Last Samurai. And one of my favorite parts of the movie. And if you don't know anything about the movie, Captain Nathan Ogren, who had fought around the time of the Civil War, had become an alcoholic, and he had really he was a broken man, and he's given an opportunity to go to Japan and present a new firearm that was being made available. And he goes over there. The long story of it is that there's a lot of corruption, but he ends up being captured by the Japanese, by a group that was against all the modernization that was happening in Japan. And The leader of the group that captured him was a samurai called Katsumoto. And he lives with them for an extended period of time and begins to learn about their culture and all. But in the end, there is a battle between the progressives and those who are wanting to hang on to the old ways. And in that battle, Katsumoto ends up being killed, and Captain Algren is brought before the emperor. Now, he had actually fought against the emperor's soldiers, and there was some grace being extended to him because he had been captured. But as he approached him, and there's all of these the cabinet, so to speak, for the new young emperor. And Captain Ogren comes in, and he has Katsumoto's sword, and he wants to present it to the emperor as a gift. And he does. He hands him the sword. And the young emperor says that he wants to understand the old ways, that even in the process of learning about the new ways, about the new Japan, about the progressive Japan, he did not want to forget the old ways. And one of the main things about the culture of the samurai was when they were captured and there was no escape, that as a sign of courage, as a sign of honor, they would take their own life. And the emperor wanted to know, was Katsumoto, when he died, was he a man of honor? And his question to Captain Ogren is, please, tell me how he died. And the answer that Captain Ogren gave him is something that has stuck with me ever since I first saw the movie. And he said this. He said, I will not tell you how he died. Let me tell you how he lived. Let me tell you how he lived. You know, when the time comes, and unless the Lord returns, it's going to happen to all of us that we will pass on. What will they say about you? Let me tell you how he lived. How did you live? How are you living your life? Right now is how you are being given the opportunity to make that story. You are writing the story. How are you living your life? Do you have what it takes? What are you doing with it? Yeah. Lots of questions. Not a whole lot of answers. But hopefully this will stir something in you that will cause you to contemplate, reflect. And it is my prayer. It is my prayer that in this season, in this time, that God will work in your life. That you will allow him to take the very things that the enemy has meant as destructive towards you, about you, that you will allow God to use those things to strengthen you, to grow you, to bring healing in your life. So God bless until we meet again.